Web design, in most cases, has always had to facilitate the technical specifications of the time. For example, the death of skeuomorphism, the design philosophy around representing items as their real-life counterparts in shape, example being the old Instagram logo, was due to the burgeoning surge of data being transferred and the need for faster internet. One quality of web design that is often overlooked is the aesthetics and what they could symbolize in culture. Newgrounds has always been emblematic of the style and function mixed flawlessly in an era of very tacky websites. Newgrounds' web design represents its attitude and culture, with each iteration getting better than the last. On this first episode of Flashcember 2020, I'm going to take you through the history and talk about the significance of Newgrounds' web design. Web design pre-Web 2.0 is often primitive and lacks any aesthetic appeal. From Newgrounds' conception to mid-2001, you were met with a very basic black background with yellow text. On top of the website, you were met with the links to featured Flash games, movies, and web pages. Below that, we see three subcategories: subculture, serious biz, and NG fanatics. After those links, we see news and updates regarding the website. There isn't much to this era of Newgrounds, but I'll go over some milestones. Around 1999, an early version of the portal appeared, having Flash movies appear from old to new in order. They appear to be manually submitted by Tom himself. This is an extremely primitive version of the portal, but it's nice to see the progression as we go on. Newgrounds had some interesting sponsors around this time, such as Troma Entertainment, the production company responsible for such classics as Toxic Avenger and Poultrygeist. In mid to late 2001, we get a significant change in the debut of the familiar logo. The website starts to resemble a familiar design, showing features on the top with tiny thumbnails, having a header, and introducing the gray into the Newgrounds canon. This is when the layout of the website started to facilitate easier navigation, with the addition of buttons above the features making the website more welcoming. Browsing the new and improved portal from this time would give you an idea of what was popular on the website and seemed to be more automated. 2003 is where things get drastically different and the Newgrounds lore and canon gets expanded into its web design. The color palette of gray, yellow, and orange have persisted as Newgrounds' identity into today, but the 2003 redesign would come to ultimately define the website's design into the future. The technological-looking widgets, the interlaced-looking background, the porn ads, and the presence of Newgrounds' secondary mascot Pico cements this era in Newgrounds as a true powerhouse of internet entertainment. The forums in BBS took a more traditional format, and profiles started to emerge. However, they're pretty early in development. The website feels seamless and stands the test of time, aesthetically speaking. The mid-2000s had a particular style with web design, due to the overabundance of Flash integration, and people really loved using animated buttons and widgets. And Newgrounds was no exception to this. Most websites were just PNGs and JPEGs masquerading as websites. Web design around this time did not facilitate vector-based web design due to lack of compatibility and differing specifications on computers at the time. Things needed to be a fixed resolution to avoid alienating certain users. Mind you, everyone was viewing these websites on CRT monitors, which were interlaced. Newgrounds ended up getting another facelift in 2005, with a wider logo header and slick buttons for different pages on the top. The website's layout doesn't deviate much, but the widgets get improved and changed around a little bit, adding more characters into the fray. We also get a bit spicy with some gradients. But overall, this era of Newgrounds is nostalgic for me. In 2005, I got a cheap eMachine computer for my 10th birthday, and I immediately made Newgrounds my homepage. And I was greeted to this every time I booted up whatever web browser I was using at the time. The next iteration of the website is its most popular and remembered incarnation by far. It's the everything by everyone era of Newgrounds. 2007 brought upon the most memorable version of the site and introduced one of the most iconic webpage headers in internet history. Nostalgia may be blinding me, but this does not look antiquated to me. Everything about the layout and design is just perfect for the time. This iteration integrated some of the previous design, but improved it tenfold. The gradient buttons under the header added the last bit of definition the website needed, at least on the homepage. When we get to the actual content, the page has changed over the years. These new pages added the iconic Pico character ratings and the awesome formatting of the review section. With this, we got the user pages feature, allowing users to highlight their favorite tunes, music, and games along with their own work. Some interesting additions came to the profile such as auras and badges. The website littered itself with its iconography even more, decking out the Flash portal with memorable characters. With this new style came with it a certain culture that persists to this day. Newgrounds is inherently a creative place, but also very critical. The presentation of Newgrounds is extremely important to the website's culture, so reviews started to become more incentivized throughout the years. The review section got an overhaul and became part of the website's most celebrated features. The general reception to this redesign was unanimous praise. Just take a look at many of these replies from 2007. That being said, this is the most iconic iteration of the website. If you ever get the chance, go to the Wayback Machine and just take a look at this. It still stands up to this day. This design would change slightly throughout the years, adding featured audio and art while foregoing a lot of the text-heavy elements of the website, such as the news and updates at the bottom. By 2011, the website would be at its best, having tons of festive events that changed the look of the website. It looked easier to navigate and starts to be more visually concentrated, like the next iteration in the website's design ethos. 2012 didn't bring the end of the world, but it certainly brought the end of the classic era look to Newgrounds. At this point, YouTube had become the most used video platform and Newgrounds' traffic started to wane, while the Flash player would be only 3 years away from being rotated out of YouTube's players for good. It was time to modernize Newgrounds. While I'm blinded by nostalgia for the previous iteration, I have to say that this version of Newgrounds is fantastic looking. Admittedly, I barely ever used Newgrounds around this time. I was completely entrenched in YouTube, so this is going to be sort of a blind run going through this design. The front page's structure does not deviate much from the previous design, keeping the buttons on the header. However, the biggest change is the focus on the thumbnail designs for all the features. If you hover over the thumbnails, we get the name and rating of each piece of content. If you hover over the tabs on the header, it opens a drop-down menu to help navigate certain criteria or gives you an option to submit your own work. There are also options that filter simple searches such as latest, greatest, and popular. The website's user interface is superb, and the conveyance of information is simple and easy. When we get to the portal, it's very familiar to its previous iteration. The biggest change is that the games, movies, audio, etc. get a more uniform look. These sections become color-coded and get their own unique backgrounds. This attention to detail and style is admirable and gives Newgrounds so much character. The actual pages of content changed to fit the new layout, but added some neat quality of life features. You can turn off the lights and focus on the movie or game, pop out the player, or completely collapse the window. This design caters to Newgrounds' priority for visuals and presentation. The overall design of the front page facilitates the background, having the header logo be transparent. Backgrounds on the website would change frequently and vary in artists. This made it easier to display themes for festivities or holidays, and these were a treat to look at when they appeared. The footer also had some unique art at times, usually being characters from the Newgrounds canon. Even though I have limited experience with this version of the website, I absolutely love looking through it in retrospect. The reaction to this redesign was just as welcomed as the 2007 redesign. Even with the mobile-friendly web design era in full swing, Newgrounds sticks to its guns and makes an awesome and stylish web surfing experience. The contemporary design for Newgrounds.com may forgo a lot of its previous style and reduce some of its features for accessibility, but it still manages to capture some of the magic of old Newgrounds. This new website completely modernizes Newgrounds, adding a retractable header and uses vector-based designs for many of its elements. The layout and design becomes more simplified, however, the simplicity cuts some features out. You can no longer specify where you want to search in the header search bar, having to click the tab after you search. The buttons on the top also exclude the drop-down menus. These features getting cut are questionable at best, as they made navigating the website more convenient in the previous iteration. As for the rest of the front page, it's mostly identical to the previous iteration, just with some spruced up new graphics and a small title graphic for each piece of content. This is the same for each portal as well. The color coordination from the 2012 iteration is only maintained in the tabs of the portals themselves. Everything is completely uniform now. This isn't a bad thing, since you must keep things simple in today's web design. The pages of content also do not deviate much either, except for the game. The game started to incorporate medals and an integrated high score into the site itself. The biggest change to the website is its integration and priority in making things HTML5 friendly. Flash's discontinued support was announced in 2017, so the website was redesigned with this in mind. Flash itself is antiquated, but the risks of continuing to use it would eventually rear its ugly head. Since this is the most recent website, I encourage you to go look at this for yourself instead of me going over it. If you want to experience the old websites for yourself, you can visit the Wayback Machine, which is what I use to capture stills and video for this retrospective. Overall, I do like this contemporary design, but I do not see myself going on Newgrounds as often. It's nice to peek into Newgrounds and what they are evolving into. I would like to see Newgrounds as somewhat of a proper video platform, just with more moderation. I think it would breathe a lot of life into the platform, but honestly, the size and the capital needed to maintain the data for a video platform would make it nearly impossible. That being said, I don't think Newgrounds is going anywhere. Now that we've looked back through the design throughout the years, how has this changed your perception of web design? Not only for Newgrounds, but in general. Modern web design is super homogenized. Like I mentioned before, new technological advances present new limitations. Personally, I miss this era of web design. Not everything may work all the time, but at least surfing the web brought a childlike wonderment to it. Newgrounds' design will always be emblematic of how web design can ride the fine line between aesthetics and functionality.